Hello, everyone, and this is episode 6 of Stuff I Find Interesting. And we continue to refine the process here. But that awesome mouse that I operated on, and I was so proud that I fixed it so that it didn't click. Well, yeah, now it doesn't really work at all. So you're going to hear some clicks in the background because I'm back to the old mouse. But it shouldn't be too terrible. I hope everyone's having a good day. It's a quiet Sunday here. It's about 8 o'clock in the morning. And I put this together for you guys as I goof around with the thing. So, we are going to start with maps of Africa. So last time we were talking about Africa and how big it is, right? And it's huge, and you would think that it wouldn't be very well mapped considering how large it is, but back in 1554, people had a pretty good idea of what was where, right? We have Libya, Ethiopia, I'm assuming they mean that whole kind of region. And you've got this guy, this monoculi, which it was believed that a race of one-eyed people lived here. And then the most interesting thing, I think, is that there's a forest in the middle of the Sahara Desert. Remember, we were talking about how the Sahara Desert used to be lush, and there's some controversy about when that happened, or when it stopped being lush. When was that? And the general consensus amongst scientists is that it was a really, really long time ago. But there are people that say, hey, maybe it wasn't that long ago because look at these maps. So it's just a matter of opinion, I guess. And also, I do need to say that anything I talk about I'm a total amateur. I'm learning as I do this, so I'm going to mispronounce things. I might get things wrong. Please feel free to correct me because I like being correct, and I want to make sure I get things as exact as possible. And I can't spend an endless amount of time on everything. I'm not going to become an expert, but enough to make it interesting, certainly. So there might be some little details. Anyway, about 40 years later, we have the new map of Africa, and we can see no more forest. So did it go away? What happened? What happened is somebody probably finally went through that area and said, oh, there's no more forest, but there was a myth about a forest being there, so that it was included. Oh yeah, there's a forest there. There's always been a forest there, but it was like a really long time ago. Now, talking about maps, I was tooling around the internet as usual, and this is Konya, Turkey. And I have no idea what this thing is. I just don't, I don't know. Is it grayed out? Is this really what it looks like from the sky? I don't know. I tried to figure it out, and I was not successful. Like, this looks like a road with some buildings. So that looks like it's probably real, but then this, and it's even got Konya. Maybe it's for airplanes. I don't know. Fascinating though, right? Look at that thing. Then also I found in Konya, Turkey, and Turkey is, when it comes to archaeology, it's amazing. Like this stuff that is being found right now. There's still so much to explore. This is also in Konya. And this is a crater within a crater. If we click on this, we can see on the left it's the remnants of a volcanic thing. And if we click here, we get another shot of what it looks like when you're up close. So that's Konya, Turkey. And if we scroll all the way out, we can see it's right here. There's Syria, Armenia, Azerbaijan, right? The stands. We love talking about the stands. And that is Konya. Now, I randomly found this while I was looking, and I hate these ads. I close them before I open this stuff up, and they come back. They come back. Okay, this is an 800-year-old historic castle gate unearthed in Turkey's Konya. So if we look at this picture, just absolutely wild. I mean, unearthed, like they didn't know it was there. Like, I'm not really sure. It's Javal Castle. I'm probably saying that wrong, but it's Hellenistic, Roman, Byzantine, Seljuk, and Ottoman. So it's been through 5 different kinds of peoples, and it's been used in continuous use, except for recently, obviously, within that amount of time. So the ancient gate of a castle used by several civilizations over thousands of years was unearthed in Turkey's Konya. Lead archaeologists say, estimating the structure is around 800 years old. And by structure, I think they mean this thing or maybe this general stuff up top. But there's stuff underneath. There's layers. It's like a culture lasagna. We have some more pictures. According to the available evidence, we have stated that the building dates back to the Hittites, one of the most ancient Anatolian civilizations. And then there's talks about the influences of the architecture and how they can see different parts and how they discovered that the place where a door would have been for like a service entrance where the people would have gone to deliver stuff, or the staff would have used, not like the king or whatever. And it's the mountain is 5,643 feet, which would, I mean, you would have a very nice vantage point, certainly over the area, and be able to protect yourself. They think there's another gate. They're going to keep looking. This has been going on for about 8 or 9 years now, so it takes a long time to do this. It's not like you just take a shovel and whack at it and it comes out of the earth. There's like a process, and it has to be documented, and it takes a very long time. But what's going to happen is this whole mountain of dirt is going to be excavated, and there's going to be probably structures all the way. It looks to me like all the way down to here, with a road maybe kind of wandering. But who knows? It's kind of cool, right? I'm going to make myself a little smaller, though. I don't know why I got to be so big. Except now it's not working. Oh, there we go. Make myself a little smaller. I don't need to be hogging the screen. All right, next we have pictures. It's picture time. This is a beautiful picture I came across. This is the Isle of Skye, specifically Marsko. And the thing I thought that was really kind of interesting about this picture, other than being beautiful and very evocative of just, I don't know, makes you feel nostalgic when you look at it, right? It was purchased by a woman's son when she passed in 2021. He purchased this picture and another picture, and he donated it to the Museum of Fine Arts in Houston. So I wonder, is this a picture that hung on the wall? Is this something that was in the family? Is it a place that maybe their relatives come from? I don't know. It's a little bit of a mystery, but just a beautiful, random, completely random. Like, I don't even know how I ended up here. I was probably in the museum. Next, we have a photo album of Castle Edo, which is really cool looking, and it's taking a minute. My computer crashed earlier, so I'm worried that that's going to happen again, because that would really be a bummer if it crashed in the middle of this. But it could. It might happen. This computer, it's got some issues. It's homemade. It's beautiful. Runs great, but it's got some issues. Kind of like me, I guess. So here we have Edo Castle, and this is no longer exists. Here we have another picture of Edo Castle. We see there's people up here. Random people. In a lot of these old pictures, you'll just see random people just kind of hanging out on top of roofs, on top of, like here, we have some people on top of the roofs there. This person's, looks like they've got an umbrella, another umbrella. I'm not sure if those are entrances. We've got some more pictures. I'm thinking it's hot based on the way people are shielding themselves from the sun. Here's one of the main gates. This is outside of the castle, and also outside of the castle. So this would have been probably a delivery of some sort. So that is Edo Castle, and I thought that was. Now, I found this, and I was very excited, and let me tell you why I'm so excited. First of all, this is a cool picture, right? Like, look at this picture. It won't let me bigify it. Okay. Sometimes it won't let you bigify. This is as big as I can get it. That's okay. It's a wonderful picture. But the thing that's really cool is this map that this person has put together. And I'm going to scroll way out so you can see how ambitious this is. It's going to take a minute to load. These are site-specific old pictures. So you can go to this map. Let's go to Alger. And we're going to get pictures, provided there's a little block there with pictures. So someone has gone around and collected all of these pictures and made this wonderful thing. And I'm like, wow, that's really cool. It's kind of neat to see what people do in their spare time. And I'm piggybacking off of Giants here, because other people have put this information together. I'm just talking about it and sharing it. So the real stars of this are the people that are creating this, that are still out there doing content that's worthy of looking at, that's different, that's thought provoking. Next we have Dar al-Hajar in Yemen, and it's called the Stone Palace. And it was built in 1918, I believe, by this spiritual advisor guy. He said, you know what, I want a really cool house, and so I'm going to build a really cool house. And he built it, and here we go. And this is actually not a great angle of it. If we look at this, this is the other side. This is the other side of it. So the side that we were just looking at was one side. This is the back side. And you can see it kind of climbs all the way up. Just a magnificent structure. You can see there's holes in the previous one, because this was not, this was the original structure. And then that was built on top. It's fantastical. Absolutely fantastical. It's now a museum, so you can pay money and you can go and you can run around it. I'm sure it's very cool inside. I wanted to look, but I didn't want to get too distracted, so I kept it moving. Now, if we look at where this is in Yemen, it's kind of, if I recall, yes, on the elbow of the Middle East. I call that the elbow. I know it's not really called that, but that's how I think of it. And there we have it. There's Yemen. And Yemen is an area that has and is experiencing a lot of strife and tragedy right now. So there's lots of places in the world going through stuff, and we don't necessarily hear about it, but Yemen is still a mess. All right, now we have the Dargavs. The Dargavs are Ossetian burial grounds. Let me show you where they are located. This is Ossetia here. It's an ethnographic kind of area. It's a Proto-Iranian culture. And it no longer exists per se, like it's no longer like, oh, this is Ossetia, but they call themselves Ossetians, and the people that live there will say, I'm from Ossetia. But if you look at a map, it will actually say, I believe Georgia has part of it and Russia has another part, but I know it's a part that kind of goes back and forth. And North and South Ossetia, they straddle the mountains and they kind of lay over it, kind of like a scarf. This is the Valley of the Dead in Ossetia. And if we go back, we have some more pictures of what it looks like there. It's just a very beautiful area, as you can see. And I put my camera in the worst spot. I can't see what I'm doing here. There's some more pictures of the area, but what I wanted to read to you about is it's an acropolis. And it, a cluster of peaked roofs and single-window brick houses sits surrounded by a picturesque farmland and cascading cliff tops. But locals believe those who enter the hard-to-reach city will never return. The village of Dargavs, otherwise known as the City of the Dead, is considered one of the creepiest places in Russia, sitting on the graves of 10,000 bodies. It's an ancient necropolis where people were buried during the 14th and 18th century. So that would be like plague people, I think, would be in there too. According to those who have ventured along the dangerous roads to the hidden city in North Ossetia, some corpses have been so well preserved, flesh is still attached to their bones. There are 99 crypts inside a 17-kilometer long valley. Some are big enough to house a single body, and others are 4 stories high. They are accompanied by their possessions, with ancient Ossetians said to believe that the afterlife was at the end of the unnavigable rivers that ran by the Darga. Historians say each crypt has a well out front, which played a crucial role in signifying if a loved one made it to the next level, the next world. I've been playing too many video games. If they dropped a coin down the well and it happened to hit a stone when it reached the bottom, it was said to be a good sign. Now, one of the things that's really crazy about this is that during the plague, people would go into the crypts and quarantine themselves and just wait to die. And the plague was perceived by the people that lived here as punishment from the gods because a young woman was treated poorly centuries ago. I'm sure there's more of a story there, but that's sort of the gist. And people moved away from it. They didn't want to be next to it. They said, we don't want to be next to this. In fact, there was a film company that came out, was going to film a movie there, and they were like, yeah, we don't want this. We can see now it's like a TikTok thing, right? Then I saw this picture and I was like, what? Of course, now it's not doing it. It's not doing it. But a very shapely woman there. I zoomed in earlier and I was like, wow, damn. Now, the Ossetians are known as, they come from the Iranian-speaking nomads, the Scythians and the Sarmatians, and were a sort of like nomadic and warrior tribes, and the area is now known as a place of artists. And some of the culture remains. And the last picture I wanted to show you is this guy right here. Check him out. He's like, hey, what's up? Very neat. I know those hats have a name. Maybe one of you watching this knows what that hat is called. But I know it has a very specific name. And you can see he has a bandolier across his chest. Looks like he's got this big musket thing. And he's got a bunch of knives. I mean, he's ready. He is ready. Okay, so while I was doing my map thing, I came across this. Alexander von Humboldt, 1769 to 1859, was a Prussian explorer. He traveled to Cuba, Mexico, Ecuador, Peru, and Venezuela. The illustrations of his books demonstrate a wide range of representational methods with elements of scientific illustration often inserted into landscapes. Mount Chimborazo in Ecuador held particular interest for him. So this is a map of Mount Chimborazo, which is this thing here. And he wrote, like, at each level, like, what he found. Okay, here there were these plants, here there were these plants. And then he also had notes, like personal notes. So it had information such as, the travelers began to bleed from the eyes, the lips, and the gums. So, I mean, useful information, I would think, if you're climbing this mountain. Now, the cool thing about this mountain is it's known as a very high mountain that could actually be climbed if you were more of an amateur. Like, if you're more of an amateur and you're like, I want to climb a mountain, but Everest is too much, Chimborazo might be your guy because it has just a steady grade. You can get altitude sickness because it's so high. It's the closest space on Earth, so not necessarily the largest, but it has to do with the way the Earth is shaped because it's on the equator. The Earth is more sort of like oblongish. It's not a perfect spheroid. It's a little oblong. And this is the last article I can read. But that's Chimborazo Peak. Now, he made these crazy maps. And this is a map that he made. And I'm going to show you the whole thing. This is just a very small part. It's all the mountains and all the rivers in the world, with the mountains represented with their height, with cities represented at their various heights, or their altitudes, I should say, and the rivers with sort of their tributaries and basic size and width, which is very, very interesting. Now, the thing that cracked me up the most is there's Europe and this and that, but then you have the region of lichens and umbilicary. I'm not sure what that means. I did not look that up. But it's funny that there's all these fancy things, but he's got the region of lichens. So I'm thinking he really liked lichens. Lichens are very fascinating, by the way. They're actually not one organism. They're multiple organisms that kind of like live together in harmony and create what you see. But it's cool that that's what he focused on, was that this is the area with the lichen in it. If we look at the whole thing, this is the whole thing. And we can see it's astounding. We have the information on the side, the information here. And I'm wrong. This was actually not, yes, this was by Humboldt. I looked it up specifically to make sure. And just absolutely wild, right? Absolutely wild. Okay. Part 2 of Stuff I Find Interesting, Part 6. Now it's story time. We're going to talk about frogs for a minute. So when I was in the military, I worked with the JAG, and this was back in the 90s. So drug use was like, I mean, it was really, like, it was very taboo. You just, if you took any drug, if you tested positive for pot, you were out. And there was no tolerance, basically. It was a no tolerance kind of thing. Anyway, I worked for the JAG, which involved court-martialing people, and while I worked for the JAG, we court-martialed a guy who licked a frog in Arizona and tripped his brains out and ended up getting arrested, and they were like, "What's going on with you? You're obviously tripping your brains out." And he's like, "Well, I licked this frog," and so he's basically doing drugs. So he got a discharge known as other than honorable, OTH. There's various different types of discharges, so his was other than honorable. I think he probably should have gotten a general discharge. I mean, who hasn't wanted to lick a frog, right? Then the other story that I have is that I worked for someone who had artificial rainforest in their huge home. And in that rainforest, in this huge home, were frogs. There was a collection of frogs. And these frogs would get a shipment of crickets. Every Friday, a shipment of crickets would come in. And Rick, the house manager I talked about before, his job was to pick up the crickets and bring them up to the guy who took care of the frogs. Well, one weekend, Rick wasn't around. Rick didn't do that. I think he was hungover. And the box of crickets stayed on my desk because at the time I was a secretary for this estate. So, boom, there's my mail, there's the box of crickets. The crickets ate their way out of the box and went through the entire office, upstairs, downstairs, under desks. There was crickets for just the longest time. You would be sitting there and it would be quiet and you'd hear chirp, 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 chirp. So yeah, those are my frog stories. This is a headline: Dirty Secret Uncovered, Doing Business on Surtsey. What does that mean? Well, there's a volcanic island named Surtsey off the coast of Iceland. And it's a protected area, and no non-native species are supposed to be introduced into this particular area. It's supposed to stay absolutely pristine. And there was a botanist that was out there, and he was trucking around, and he looks, and he sees a plant which he knows does not belong. And he says, "Well, what is this? This is a plant that doesn't belong." He starts to poke at it, and he notices that the stuff that it's growing out is kind of like mushy, and he's like, ugh. And then he realizes that another scientist who had eaten a tomato did his business on this island, and within his fecal matter was a tomato seed, and a tomato grew up out of the lava. So this guy said, and he scooped it up, and he scooped up all the earth around it, and he made sure that it was protected, and he got it off the island. And this was a secret that he kept for 30 years. He didn't tell anybody. I don't know if he told it on his deathbed or something, but he did not say anything until years later, and then it came out. Dirty Business Uncovered. There you go. There is another branch of the Silk Road that was recently discovered within the past 7 or 8 years. And the thing I find interesting about this is that there's a new Silk Road that's being constructed, and it's called the China's Massive Belt and Road Initiative, and it's a colossal undertaking. There's mountains, there's valleys, it's not gentle territory where you can just throw down some tarmac or some concrete and boom, you got a road. Some of the most dangerous driving spots on earth are in this particular area. So here's a map that shows kind of what it looks like, and we can see that it's not all that dissimilar from the one that existed years and years ago. So they're kind of following in the footsteps of other people. And they talk some more about it, and I'll include it in here. But I said, that's interesting. Now we're going to talk about Kiev Bus Garage number 7, Ukraine's giant saucer. So let's blow this up a little bit. So this is a bit of architecture that this famous guy built, And it's literally a bus garage. But he made it super fancy. I mean, he really he went crazy with it. Look at this. This is the bus garage. I'm guessing people could go in here. Maybe there were offices. That's pretty cool, right? Here we have the buses. Now, interestingly enough, some of the buses that were housed here were used to evacuate people when Chernobyl happened. And the buses had to remain there because they were radioactive. So here we have one of the abandoned buses because it was too radioactive to bring back to the bus garage. There's some of the buses. We have a guy working on a bus. This is the outside right now. They're trying to fix it up, but obviously Ukraine has a lot of other stuff going on, so I can't. It's going to be a while, I think, if anything happens to it all at all. This is the top of it. This is from kind of like far away. You can see this is the bus garage. This is the whole thing. So it's just basically a big round building with a tower in the center. So I said, wow, here we have. This is very typical of kind of Soviet brutalism. The statues. And I'm not sure if those are part of the bus garage. I think those are just other examples by the same architect. And that's Ukraine's abandoned superstructure. Now there's a lot of Kiev's abandoned structures that are kind of crazy. So if we look, we've got this thing. And they really kind of went crazy when they made this, right? And then we've got, oh, here it is, in the fog, looking all moody and stuff. Looks very mathematical. Here's another structure. So the structure reflects kind of the times. It's very resolute. It makes a very strong statement. There's nothing soft about brutalism. Here we have kind of a swoopy, it's kind of a mid-century brutalist thing going on there. There's a model of it. There's another wacky building, just really kind of interesting looking. There's the mock-up of it. Another mock-up, another mock-up. And then we have some drawings. So just we have a great set of stairs. I really love a great set of stairs. That's a great set of stairs. Okay, so moving on. I thought that was cool. Now we're almost to conspiracy theory time, but before we get to conspiracy time, we're going to talk about Kupol City petroglyphs. So there are these holes in things like this, like you see, all over the world, and people don't really know why. So some people think they might have been associated with an hallucinogenic drink. Some think they might have been a vessel. They have found hallucinogenic residues inside some of the holes that seem to be aligned with stellar constellations. So there's these holes that are not random at all. They look random, but they're not random. There's a very, very specific pattern that is reflected up in the sky. And more cupules, more cupules, more cupules. And they're always found near petroglyphs. So there's some sort of relationship between the two. Now, I'm going to come back to the cupules and this whole phenomena. But the thing I want to talk about before we talk about the Busegi Mountains is Don's maps. We're going to talk about Don's maps. So this is Don. Look at Don. Don's awesome. I love Don. Look at this. Look at on the left side. Look at all of this work that this guy has done. I'm in awe. I'm in awe. This is just incredible. Like, I could just do stuff I find interesting with Don's stuff. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that, Don. But, I mean, I kind of want to. Look at this. He took a bicycle trip down the Danube. So, Don is traveling places. He's not just writing about stuff. He's going places. And just absolutely, absolutely fascinating. And he's done some research into the cupules, so we'll be coming back to Don. But in the meantime, I wanted to give a salute to Don. Here's to you, Don. Okay, Orgone Energy. What is Orgone Energy? It was believed during the 1930s, it was proposed by William Reich that humans give off this energy. this sort of sexually charged, orgasmic, hence the name Orgone Energy, and that this energy can go awry and cause problems within the psyche, within the body. And so there were these special structures that were built with organic material, inorganic material, organic material. It was like the sandwich of various materials which was supposed to provide some sort of metaphysical benefit. But what you were supposed to do is go into this box and sit there. And by sitting there, your orgone would get adjusted. And there was a guy who, I'm going to have to find the article now. He said he didn't believe in the orgone thing. He didn't understand it, but he said he loved it because his wife would go in this box and sit there for 2 hours a day. And he just thought that was great. So, Orgone Energy, folks. Get yourself a box or don't. Busegi Mountains. Check this out. On March 11, 2013, I spent 3 days in Romania and up in the Busegi Mountains. So I've heard it said Busegi, and Busegi. So I'm not really sure. I looked it up and it was pronounced 3 different ways. I'm going to say Busegi. Unfortunately for me, the Sphinx and the Babel were not possible to get to, but I was able to verify a few things. Not only could I feel a strong energy there, I had a physical reaction to it. I was getting static shocks. When I drove past the halfway marks, the silence was deafening, but there was a strange sound I could not explain. If I closed my eyes, I could observe strange shapes, as if I was watching the energy move in front of me. Very strange. On my return, the infections I had in both ears were gone, and a pain in my upper arm, which I had had for a number of months, quickly started to heal. And I was, suddenly, very tired all of the time. So the Busegi Mountains, like, what is that? So this is the Busegi. This is known as the Romanian Sphinx. Now, I'm going to show you some pictures. But remember the very first episode, I talked about how there was a time travel machine in Iraq, and that was the reason for the Gulf War, that the soldiers needed to go in, and then there was some that went missing, right? It was... Anyhow, these mountains are believed to be connected to that time travel tunnel and other places. And it's a complex that was built by another civilization. And we have a picture here of, I'm going to move myself out of the way, extraterrestrial base discovered inside the Busegi Mountains, Romania, and the tunnels to Iraq, Tibet, and Egypt. So here it is. It's inside the mountain. You can go into it. And it goes down, and I think there's like tablets in there that have some sort of ancient wisdom. Let's just look at some more about it. It said, so this person wanted to talk about the unexplainable high level of energy, possible radioactivity, and that there's a lot of mysteries associated with it. So, in summary, the area is touristic and well visited. The area has a special energy you feel when you are there. There are scientists who measure stuff there. If you go too close to radio station, our man tell you not to get close. Military action with U.S. take place in that area. I've never heard of military action taking place in that area, but I believe it. Like, okay. And locals know about the special place and theories, and there are many witnesses of special phenomenons in the area. So the Busegi Mountains, they have a weird energy. But I do believe there are places in the world where there is not necessarily a mystical or magical energy. I just, maybe the way the rocks are, the way things are, the way the mountains are lined up, there could be harmonics, right? I don't know. I just think there's probably something to it. I don't know if I'd go as far as this guy. A helicopter crash killed all 6 soldiers. Then the bodies went missing, so that's another set of bodies that went missing. There was the 5 in the Iraq chamber, and then there's these guys that went missing. And why were Israeli soldiers in a helicopter in Romania? How come they found the helicopter but not the bodies? And then it talks about how it was wiped out. And the government did spend $100 million on a new military base in Romania, which is kind of interesting. This is my Mount Kailash. This is where all of the tunnels go to. All of the tunnels that are underground, Iraq, whatever, they go to Mount Kailash. And that is, here we have some pictures of stuff. So, yeah, there we go. That's it. That's all I have interesting. I have another episode that I'm throwing together that I might do some post-production on. I definitely have to fix the mouse a little bit more so that I don't have the click, 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 click. And I hope everybody has a great day, and you'll see me soon. So,